Sri Ramana Maharshi says that we should spend all our time in Samadhi, in one of the three kinds of Samadhi: Savakalpa, Nirvikalpa, and Sahaj. It's not like consciousness can be divided up into different kinds of Samadhi or anything like that, but what he's pointing to is, don't spend your time as a creature in the world. Spend your time, so-called time, in and as the one reality, non-dual. The Maharshi didn't write much in his life, but the basis of his whole teaching is in this little book, Who Am I? And before he even goes into this inquiry, who am I, he talks about the world. And he talks about our relationship to the world and what that should be. The devotee asks the Maharshi, what is the nature of awareness? The nature of awareness is existence, consciousness, bliss. When will the realization of the self be gained? Maharshi answers, when the world, which is what is seen, has been removed, there will be realization of the self, which is the seer. So it's very important to even begin your spiritual practice with at least an understanding that what we commonly call the world is unreal, and to spend your time in that world enjoying and suffering and all the other pursuits of happiness within the world itself are not fruitful. And we have to see that the world, which is what is seen, everything objective, is removed. And removed in the way of, you just know that it's not real. You simply understand it's not real. It's not that something real is being removed. It's instantly removed with a deep understanding of its illusory nature. So listen again. When the world, which is what is seen, has been removed, there will be realization of the self, which is the seer. And so this also implies that this realization is already there. When the unreal thing is removed or not taken to be real anymore, it's not like you have to get anything new. This pure being consciousness bliss is always the case. It's just that it's covered over by what we call the world, what human beings normally take to be their reality. So how do we remove the world? Well, this brings us back to what we spoke about, Samadhi, or spiritual practice. Discerning the real from the unreal. Discerning this pure being consciousness bliss from what is seen, or what we call the world. So keep in mind that what we're calling the world here also includes the human form that some take themselves to be. That's the world, that's seen, that's objective. Needs to be removed because it's not real. So this discerning is deep, profound, and it's all-inclusive or all-eliminative. As we often say here, a hint to knowing the difference between what is seen, what is objective, what we call the world, and the seer, the consciousness. One way to understand this is what is seen and what is objective. It always is objective, so it's always what is out. But also it's always changing. Whatever changes is unreal. Whatever changes is the world. And this includes your thoughts, your dream state, the actual physicality of world, every subtle arising, all this we call world. So all this is what needs to be removed for self-realization. And of course Maharishi goes on in the book to explain that the method for removing this world, this unreal, illusory thing that we usually take to be real when we don't understand, is the inquiry, who am I? And the inquiry is simply our tool for discerning the real from the unreal. If you hold to your own sense of existence, to your own I, that's the beginning. And if you discern very clearly what changes about that I and what never changes, that's very good. And so, this is why we meditate, to deeply discern the truth about ourselves. The first kind of meditation, what we call Savikalpa Samadhi, is detaching from what we call the world, detaching from everything objective. Who am I? What does it feel like? What does I feel like? And when it seems to be something objective, such as a body or qualities, those things are objective and they're not you. So you detach and go deeper. Who am I? Who am I really? What's always there? And so the Savikalpa Samadhi is a deepening of knowing the truth, and it's letting go of what's changing, passing like a thought, detaching from your own thoughts. You'll always be happier and more at peace when you don't believe in your own thoughts. No thought, no matter how spiritual or lofty it is good enough to hold forever. No thought could possibly ever be yourself. Most of the time, when we delve into this, who am I, what we usually take to be ourselves is either something grossly physical, which is not ourselves, or some kind of a quality or feeling or sensation, which is a thought. And that can't be yourself. So discern for yourself, and that's what Savakalpa Samadhi is this discerning. And so in Savakalpa there's still thoughts. And they may be very good thoughts. And even if you have the thought, who am I? It's still a thought. And it's good. And this is Savakalpa Samadhi, where you're becoming more and more the real and letting go of the unreal. Resting and enjoying more and more that being, consciousness, and bliss that you are. So wherever you find your meditation during this talk, try to take it deeper to the next step, and only you know where you are in your own spiritual practice, and there's no one here that's going to give you a certificate of completion or anything, so use your own practice and deepen it until there's no one there whatsoever. So if your meditation is such that there's still thoughts, detach from those thoughts and rest again and again in what's thoughtless, what's pure consciousness without thoughts. In Savakalpa, we also, when it's very deep, we become the witness of everything arising, the witness of all dreaming, the witness of all thoughts, all states. This is still Savakalpa because there's still a seer and a seen, a witness and what is witnessed. So if you've detached from all thought, and that's familiar to you, and you know that's not what you are, detach from all states of mind, detach from everything that's arising. And by detach, I don't mean keep your attention on the arising, I mean rest in what is prior to all that arising. Abide as the stillness of being. If anything arises, you witness it as pure consciousness, but you don't get caught up in it. All this is in the Savakalpa Samadhi state. But it's very good to be the witness of all arising. It's more than most human beings ever experience in their lifetime. I'm going to read to you a little, it's called a benedictory, and Sri Ramana Maharshi has brought it up quite a few times, and it's just a little dialogue between a master and a disciple. And it shows how everything that arising, what we call this whole world, actually arises to you. This whole world occurs to you and only you. And by that you, I mean you are the pure consciousness in which the whole world arises. So the Master says, what is the light for you? And this is not really a spiritual question, it's just a plain ordinary question. What is the light? And the disciple says, by day the sun, by night a lamp. Plain and simple. What lights up everything that you see? Or the world. What lights up the world? By day the sun, by night a lamp. The Master says, what is the light that perceives that light? In other words, how can you even, what is aware of the sun and the lamp? And he says, the eye, his physical eye, E-Y-E, his eye sees the light of the sun and the lamp. And then the Master says, what is the light that illumines the eye? In other words, all the seeing that goes on of the sun and the whole world, is it just the physical eyeball that can do such a thing? Is it the little round blob of cells that's actually perceiving this whole world? What is it that sees the light? Master says, what is the light that illumines the eye? E-Y-E. The disciple says, that light is the intellect. Or we could call it the mind. There's something greater than just the eyeball that's allowing perception to take place. The Master says, what is that light that knows the intellect? And the disciple says, the I, the letter I. In other words, his own consciousness is what allows the mind to illumine the eyeball to see all arising. So this I am, is greater than the sun. The I am, your consciousness, is the one that says that the sun is there, that the sun exists. Can you see how that consciousness is bigger, vaster than any light that occurs in the human world? So it is the light that allows anything to be perceived. Master, you are therefore the supreme light of all lights. And the disciple says, yes, that I am. So that little benedictory may take some pondering and meditation, and you just don't want it to be some kind of conversation between some ancient master and disciple, but you want it to be real for you. So understand how your own consciousness is vaster than this whole world. And you can begin to understand what the Maharishi says, that in order for self-realization, the world must be eliminated, must be seen to be objective to your own consciousness. And anything objective is dependent on the subject. So find that subject within yourself, the subject upon which everything arising depends on. And as you delve into your meditation more and more, all objects, it's because you're turning away from them. Like I said, you're detaching from them. That in that way they're eliminated just because there's no attention there for them. They don't exist. There's nobody there to see them. And this brings us to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in which no thoughts arise. Nothing arises in Nirvikalpa. Now it can be likened to in the traditions of Advaita, like an empty pitcher, like a water pitcher, sitting in the sky. There's nothing within, there's nothing without. There's nothing arising. And there's no thoughts such as nothing is arising. There's no thoughts such as I exist or I don't exist. There's no thought at all, not even spiritual thought. There's no word for it, but there's only one thing, and it is you, yourself, the divine being, consciousness, bliss. Now, if this still seems to be a meditational state, in other words, it's something that happens when a human form sits down, then it still comes and goes. And it's not like the human form has to be sitting in meditation at all times. This is not enlightenment. If your meditation depends on, or if your realization of the truth depends on you sitting in meditation, then you can go deeper. So if you understand deeply what Nirvikalpa Samadhi is, you know what a thoughtless state is, you understand yourself to be being alone, pure being, and that being is all that exists. And yet, as the Maharshi says, Nirvikalpa Samadhi could be like a well with water, in which a bucket goes down and gets the water. And while the bucket goes down, there's nirvikalpa. In other words, there's no differentiation, and yet we can bring that bucket back up, and you can go back to your waking state experience as if it was real. In other words, there will be a thoughtless state while you're in meditation, and then when you get up and leave the room, you go back to being a guy or a girl in a world. We can go deeper. And what we call that deeper state is Sahaj Samadhi, our natural state, the natural state, in which if someone were to see you, they'd see a human form walking around, and yet there is no one embodied as a human form. There's only pure being. And so, no matter what appearances come and go, or appear to come and go, there really is no such appearance in Sahaj Samadhi. And so, to the outside looker, it's not like the sage has to be sitting in seated meditation 24 hours a day. The natural state, there's absolutely no limitation whatsoever. So spend your time always in one of the forms of samadhi. And if you lose your way, always come back to who am I, and that will bring you inward, and use that inquiry, who am I, take you to Sabakopa Samadhi and detach from all arising. Who am I ceases to be a thought. It just becomes pure enjoyment of the divine in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And Sabakopa Samadhi, the who am I is totally thrown away and not needed. And there's only pure enjoyment of being, consciousness, bliss as yourself, with nothing else ever. Birthless, deathless, eternal existence. All that ever has been, all that ever will be, and there is no all to it. So before we go into formal meditation, I'd just like to read one more thing. From the Vibhu Gita, translated by Nomi. Sri Ramana Maharshi refers to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, complete absorption in the self with resultant oblivion to the manifested world, as a state of blissful trance, but not permanent, like a bucket of water lowered into a well. In their bucket there is water, which is the mind, that is merged with the water in the well, which is the self. So the mind is fallen helpless in the self. The mind is merged in and as the self. But the rope and the bucket still exist to draw it out again. So there's still a coming and going in Nirvikalpa. The Maharshi declares that Sahaj Samadhi is pure, uninterrupted consciousness, transcending the mental and physical plane, yet, to an observer, with an awareness of a manifested world and full use of mental and physical faculties. Sahaj is a state of perfect equilibrium, perfect harmony, beyond even bliss, comparable to the waters of a river merged in those of the ocean. Sahaj signifies what is effortless, natural, and innate. It is the state of being, the self and the self alone. So let's meditate for half an hour and totally, you know what to do.